for itself the way it would divide up. 1260, roughly right around there, right? So, but again, I don't think the devil had a short time, so we had the 250 years, because we know he's still causing problems. But if you're trying to connect the time and a half time, we've already been told how long that is. It's 1260, according to Sean, years. Everybody with me? Did I lose anybody yet? All right. So the serpent spewed water out of his mouth like a flood after the woman. Right? So now we got our flood coming, and what happens? Nobody reading ahead, it's amazing. That he might be carried away by the flood, but the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened its mouth and swallowed up the flood, which the dragon had spewed out of his mouth. And the dragon was enraged with the woman, and he went to make war with the rest of her offspring who kept the commandments of God and had the testimony of Jesus Christ. So, originally, imagine it this way. This is the land. This is where Christianity's getting its start, right? Everything's been going on there, this whole thing. War breaks out in heaven. Devil loses sometime after the time of Christ's resurrection, whatever. And then he sends a flood. But the earth opens up and swallows up that water. And now the woman is across the sea somewhere. The devil can't get to her. She's going to wait for 1260 years for her time to rise up. And in the meantime, the devil is going to wage war against the saints that are still where he was in the first place. Well, if you look at our history, what has been going on in Jerusalem and all of that for the last 2,000 years? Spiritual unrest. It hasn't stopped. It has been nonstop. The Crusades, all of that, for 2,000 years, everything has been terrible. Well, Scripture told us what. But we're waiting 1,260 years for her to rise up. Now, I know we're getting close to time, but I'm going to do this real quick. I'm going to try to do it real quick. Everybody with me so far? If you go to the timeline, by the way, that's Pangea. A physical occurrence. Science will tell you it took place. Continents have the same kind of soil on certain corners that show where they connected. There is actually a matching soil that has been found from the tip of Texas that connects to identical soil in Antarctica. There is stuff from the tops of mountains that have been exact soil. I got a whole book on it, on geology downstairs, that will show you Pangea over and over and over again, and the matching soil. Pangea took place, and the Bible said it was going to happen in Isaiah, and it demonstrates how it happened in Revelation. And it even gets... Huh?
They had a program recently that shows all that.
Yeah, you can download some things that show you breaking apart.
So that happened after the crucifixion.
Happened after the crucifixion. Now, if you think about this, what happened when Jesus died on the cross?
Earthquake.
Massive earthquake, right? Now, if God had struck Jerusalem with a massive earthquake because of his fury over mankind killing Jesus, what would have happened to Jerusalem?
It crumbled.
You'd think it'd be obliterated, but it did. Hail tore, some rocks fell, but Jerusalem was intact. Why?
Because it was the epicenter.
Yeah. I think because that earthquake actually didn't happen in Jerusalem. It happened in the wilderness. And it was felt. A 10.0 way over there. Guess what? Jerusalem felt it. Walls shook. Stuff happened. What happens 3 days later? Another earthquake. Aftershock, right? We see stuff in Scripture describing earthquakes. But we also see that God planned Pangea. It was part of the story. So, in the wilderness somewhere, we see the earth is shaking in the story of Jesus' crucifixion. We see things are taking off. And so we see a Pangea story described and played out in the Bible. Then you come to science and they say, oh, you can't deny it, Pangea is real. It happened 100 million years ago. We know for a fact it didn't happen 100 million years ago because the earth wasn't here 100 million years ago. So if evidence of Pangea took place, it had to have happened in the last 6,000 years. And isn't it interesting that God put it in the Bible? So here we have the story. Mary going, I was going to tell you one more thing, but I'll get to that next week just because I need more time. But I'm going to tell you one more thing just to go with Pangea since we're at it. So, some of you have heard me tell this. I watched a special on Disney on the Mayans. Nothing to do with religion. Nothing at all. It wasn't why I watched it. I was just curious and I was bored and it was on. In it, it had two archaeologists that were competing because there were these little totems all the way from way down as far south of Central America and Africa, whatever, as you could get. And they led all the way up into the base of Mexico, or top of Mexico. And they're markers of the kings, the migration of the kings, but they had hieroglyphics and they hadn't broken them all. And they were really having difficulty, and they said, we knew that when we solved those clues, we would be able to prove that the Mayans had migrated for 10 to 20,000 years to get up into the Mexicos to do it. But again, what's wrong with that? Any chance the Mayans migrated for 20,000 years? Nope. So they competed. Well, one of those guys had his young boy was going on all of his excursions with him and all this, and now he's 15, 16 years old. He's sitting in the kitchen one night, and he's working on his homework, and he calls him to his dad, and he said, Dad, did the Mayans have contractions? He said, what do you mean? He says, you know, two words put together to make a new word. Is it possible two pictures went together to make a new picture? And he says, no way. No way. He calls his nemesis on the phone and he says, you're not going to believe what my 15-year-old just suggested. And he goes, no way. And the 15-year-old broke the Mayan code. And they found out that the markers of kings was not for 10,000 or 20,000 years, but 2,000 years of migration. So now I was intrigued. The next week I found another special on the Mayans. And in that one they told the oldest known legend of Mayan kings. I don't remember if they told the king's name or not. But the king said, I went to bed in my tent one night and there was land and all my people were outside. And when I woke up in the morning there was sea and I had been separated from my people. So the Mayan legend had a story of Pangea that told how the Mayans got separated from the rest of their people to dwell across the sea, separated by a large body of water. We know that they migrated for about 2,000 years. So if you go back 2,000 years, now there's a story telling about Pangea, not in the Bible, just history. It makes even more sense. Pangea happened. God said it was going to happen. But then he said, I'm going to wait 1,260 years for that woman. I'm going to tell you one fact, and then we'll talk about the rest next week. This is Sean's math. We'll come back to it, but it's not my math, it's just the math in the Bible. We're going to say 95 AD, John wrote down Revelation. Give or take a few years, right? If we had 1,260 years to that, and this is just estimating because I don't know exactly what year all this took place, but Jesus says, tell them what you've seen, tell them what is, and tell them what's going to be. So, if we just go on, this is what is, at the time of John's writing, we are at what? I did that right? 1355 AD. Around this same exact time, the first copy of an English, even though it's very old English, translation of the Bible was started to be compiled by scholars. That will eventually become the English Bible that we read today. 1,260 years after this, historically, the first version of an English Bible will start getting compiled that will become the text of the New World. See the history?
So who was taken into the wilderness when the Pangea broke apart?
The promise of God's people. The fruit of the new church growing across the sea.
But they didn't know about Jesus yet.
Not yet. It's not about that. It's about God's plan for the church and where it will get its true foothold later. Not now, but later. So we're going to see, where does the non-Catholic church finally get its real foothold for the first time? Across the sea. In the Americas. Now you'll see little blitz in here, but to really take off as the church as we know it, it will happen across the sea. Go ahead.
How could they not know about Jesus if it happened after his crucifixion and resurrection?
What do you mean? He's talking about the new world. Like the Indians didn't know about Jesus. They hadn't received all that yet. If they got separated, Pangea took place, and this message of Jesus going on, there's going to be civilizations, groups of people over here that never hear about the word until time passes.
Yeah, I was thinking that, in Jerusalem they knew about the crucifixion and resurrection. But over by England, they didn't hear about that for a long time.
Yeah.
So if that part broke off, they wouldn't even have any inkling of it.
Yeah, exactly. That's why you see a lot of these Indian, they've got some version of God out there, but embracing a Jesus aspect of it was not part of their culture at all. Now I don't want to say it all, because we see the Son of God, but even some of the origins of the Son of God